Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. John Grisham is best known for his legal thriller novels, but now he's trying his hand at basketball. Grisham joined me to break down his new novel, Sooley, and the 30th anniversary of the firm.
Good morning, Jason.
Hey, John Grisham, it's an honor to talk with you. Just give us the quick premise.
Well, Sooley is a character, the main character in the book. Not a great title, but it's all I could find. And his name is Samuel Suleiman. Suleiman is a fairly common name in East Africa. He comes from the Sudan, South Sudan, and he comes to the U.S. one summer to play basketball in a showcase tournament. He's 17 years old. And while he is here playing basketball, some terrible things happen to his village back in South Sudan, and he cannot go home. And so he finds himself on scholarship to a small school in North Carolina, in Durham, NC Central, and he enrolls there as a redshirt freshman and starts playing basketball.
Awesome. So you get the whole inspiring basketball side, like Hoosiers, but talk about how there's this whole backdrop overseas of his home country in South Sudan, this sort of push-pull within him the whole time of his home versus, the new possibilities of the American dream.
Yeah, well, South Sudan is a very difficult place to live. It's one of the most dangerous countries to visit. The State Department tells us not to go there. They've had 50 years of civil war and still a lot of tribal, ethnic problems, and that spills over into the story because while he is here in the U.S. playing basketball, some terrible things happen to his village. His home is burned, a lot of atrocities, and his family is dispersed, and he doesn't know where they are. He cannot go home. And he has to stay. He wants to go home and find his family. He can't do that. And so the story switches back and forth between Sooley trying to adjust to life in America and the dream of playing basketball, but also his fear and worry about his family. And you go back and forth. And the book does a pretty good job of describing what his family is going through, the life of refugees and the humanitarian crisis that is very real in many parts of Africa, and so it's a good picture of this crisis that's happening all around the world. We have more refugees today than ever before. And the South Sudanese, I think, are the second largest refugee population behind the Syrians. And so the South Sudanese are scattered everywhere. And his mother and siblings are forced to walk for hours and days to find food and water and a place to live. And they finally end up in a huge, sprawling camp that's very accurate. It's a real place in Uganda. And his mother does not know where he is. She hopes he is in the U.S., but she's not sure. He can't go back home. There is no home, and he, of course, is fixated on his family, and he wants to try to find some way to find them and help them, and it's impossible. He's very depressed and worried and fixated about his mother and siblings, and the death of his father is confirmed, so he knows his dad is dead. Does not know where his mother and little brothers are, and it's very obviously troubling for him. So while he's trying to adjust to life in America, one that he was not planning on, and on campus, and also trying to concentrate on basketball, he's very worried about things back home. He uses the basketball as an escape, really, to forget about his problems for a short period of time. He works out a lot in the gym. He's also growing at an alarming rate. He's about 6'4" when we meet him. He's soon 6'5" and 6'6". He's going to be a redshirt freshman because he was not heavily recruited and expectations are pretty low. But he, with time, turns into a pretty incredible physical specimen, and he spends hours and hours in the gym working out and shooting buckets, and he eventually becomes a very accomplished basketball player in a short period of time. They ditched the red shirt thing, goes out the window when the team has a bunch of injuries and the team has a bunch of losses, and the coaches are kind of desperate for something, so they put Sooley in a game, and that begins the legend of Sooley.
I love it. It must have been really fun to write a sports novel like this, and we all know you from your legal thrillers, which we can get to in a minute, but was it personally fulfilling to branch out and try a different genre?
Oh, listen, it was so much fun. I've done it. I've had 2 football novels, Bleachers and Playing for Pizza, and then a baseball novel about 10 years ago, Calico Joe. These books are a wonderful diversion. I love sports and played sports and follow sports, and it's a lot of fun to write novels about athletes and teams, and it's a great diversion. I'm not going to get away from the legal thriller because, for obvious reasons, those things are very popular, have been very good to me, and I have a lot of readers out there who expect the legal thriller every fall, so I'm not going to get away from that. But I do like to go in other directions, and I've written 7 books for kids. I've written 1 work of nonfiction, published 1 book of short stories. So I divert from the law all the time, and it's a wonderful diversion.
Awesome. While we're on that subject, you've written football novels, baseball novels, now a basketball novel. Where do your sports allegiances lie, sir? Who are your teams?
Well, I live in Charlottesville, and my son went to UVA, so we go to all of the UVA home games and love the program, love Tony Bennett. He's been here for 13 years now and brought a new level here. The national championship was 2 years ago, and we're still enjoying that. My wife is a Tar Heel fan. She went to UNC. My daughter went to UNC. She's a Tar Heel, so I've got mixed loyalties at the dinner table, and so we go to a lot of games in Chapel Hill. So we spend a lot of our wintertime and basketball season, going to games, and then we follow ACC basketball closely, and it's just a whole lot of fun. And we live for March Madness like all fans, and we've been to regionals, Final Fours, and with Carolina and with UVA now. So those are our teams. I follow college sports, prefer college sports over the pros. Love college football, love college baseball, and keep up with it. Professionally, I grew up a Cardinals fan in around the Memphis area. That's Cardinal country, and so that's my team. I like the Nationals. Pro football, I don't really, I watch a few games, but not much, and I always pull for the Packers. That's my childhood team. So those are my teams.
Yeah, that UVA upset when they lost in the first round to UMBC must have been horrible for you. But they came back. They avenged it. You're good.
It was beyond horrible. But it also set the stage for the following year. The comeback they made is just an incredible story. It's worthy of a book. I'm not going to write it, but I'm sure somebody's writing that book. But it was such an epic meltdown against UMBC. UVA has never done well in the tournament. It's just kind of historically where we dropped the ball. And we did it this year. We lost in the first round to Ohio. Yeah. And so UVA fans are very nervous when we're very excited to get to the tournament. But we're also pretty anxious because the record's not that great. And to melt down against UMBC was just devastating. But the players that we all become attached to and the coaches showed a lot of resilience, and the comeback in 2019 was phenomenal. The last 3 games they were on the verge of losing those games, and they pulled out these miraculous wins, and it was their destiny, and we're still reveling in that.
Yeah, you mentioned your family's ties to UNC and going to Chapel Hill. Obviously Michael Jordan the Great came out of there, and he and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, that whole 1992 Olympic Dream Team, they were the ones credited with globalizing the sport, which is where maybe a Sooley from another country saw it. Was any of that percolating in your mind, how basketball became this global sport in the 90s for a Sooley to aspire to come here?
Sure. I mean, all that was as part of the background. The showcase tournament that Sooley plays in when he comes here in the summertime, he's 17 years old. There are many showcase tournaments throughout the country in the summertime. These kids from around the world travel here. They're very excited about coming here. They're terribly excited about playing in front of American college coaches and getting scouted. Their dream is to play collegiately here, and then professionally, of course. The dream is the NBA. And there have been so many great players from Africa. That keeps the dream alive. But also, the Eastern Europeans and South Americans. They come from everywhere now. It's such a global sport, and it's just for fans. It's just we love to see kids from other countries come here, play here. We've had a bunch of them at UVA. We had one kid who was sort of an inspiration for the book. His name is Mamadi Diakite. He came here from Guinea to UVA. He didn't play much his first 2 years, but he kept getting bigger and quicker, and he could jump over the backboard. And by the time he was a senior last year, he was playing really well, a shot blocker and just a big guy inside. He got drafted last spring, and he's now on the roster for the Milwaukee Bucks. And he was never all-conference, never an All-American, but he got bigger. And we fell in love with the kid because of, these South Sudanese kids typically play with tremendous enthusiasm and with big smiles. You just love to watch them play because they love the game so much. And so that was also an inspiration for the book.
Right. Well, I know my listeners will kill me if we don't ask you a couple questions about your legal thrillers. Remind us where you went to law school and how you wrote that first book. I mean, I guess the first one was A Time to Kill, right?
Yeah, Time to Kill was 1989, and I was still a lawyer in Mississippi when I wrote that. And I'd practiced law for 10 years in my hometown, which is a suburb of Memphis, and I went to undergrad at Mississippi State, law school at Ole Miss, and I didn't think about writing back then. I was going to be a lawyer or a judge or something, and got the urge to write not too many years into that career, and started playing around with a novel, very much on the quiet. Nobody knew it but my wife, and I was afraid to show anybody what I was writing. And I finished the first book in 3 years, A Time to Kill. It came out in 1989, as you said. And it was a total flop. I mean, the book didn't sell and anywhere. And I was not discouraged. I was still writing. And I vowed to write one more book. And if the second book flopped like the first book, I was going to forget that little hobby and just be a lawyer or a judge. The second book was The Firm, which came out 30 years ago, March of 91, and that changed everything.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I still think of that one scene in the movie of The Firm, in the Cayman Islands where they're at that little tropical bar. Had you done a trip there or anything? Where'd you get the idea for that setting?
When I wrote the book, I set the book in Memphis because that was the only town I knew. I hadn't traveled any. And I'd been out of the country one time on a scuba diving trip to Grand Cayman in 1978 when I was 23 years old. A bunch of us took off to Grand Cayman's famous for its scuba diving, and we were doing a lot of diving back then, and just had a wonderful time on Grand Cayman and became intrigued by the international Caribbean banking stories you would hear about, the huge banks in a small, poor country, and where was all the money coming from? And it was, South American drug money, most of it. It was just a fascinating setting. I wasn't thinking about writing back then, but when I did start writing The Firm, I needed to have a place to, for Mitch McDear to get away to, and so it was easy because I'd actually been there.
Right. What was your reaction to finally seeing both of those movies? I mean, A Time to Kill, I think Samuel L. Jackson should have won the supporting actor Oscar that year. And then, of course, Tom Cruise and the great Gene Hackman for The Firm. Were you just blown away that suddenly these actors that you'd idolized forever are suddenly in your movies? It was
pretty awesome. Looking back, it's hard to remember now, but the movies of The Firm, The Pelican Brief, and The Client came out within the span of 12 months, all three of those movies, from the summer of 93 to the summer of 94. And they all were huge movies with big casts, great actors, huge box office grosses, foreign box office grosses. They were, famous movies. They're still on TV somewhere tonight. And so that 1 year period around 1994, we were all blown away. We were incredibly busy, and it was frantic and crazy, and it was a wonderful time. And that really paved the way for the rest of the career. Once those books and movies were so successful, it just really made everything else happen.
That's true. Then, of course, The Rainmaker comes out. Coppola takes that on with a young Matt Damon. And then, of course, The Pelican Brief with Denzel. Did you ever hear from like a Denzel saying, hey, thank you for writing such a big moment in my film career?
I've never been one to hang around a movie set. It's really boring. It's really boring work. And I don't make movies. I don't know how to make movies, so I'm not going to go there. But we would normally go to the set once or twice, take the kids, meet all the actors and the director and watch them film a couple of scenes and get totally bored and go back home. But so we were able to meet almost all of the actors in the movies. We did not get to meet Denzel, but I think we met most of the other ones, and they're all super nice. They're all happy to be there. And one thing about it that I remember is how much they all love the books, and they love they had read the books and they loved the stories, and they were honored to be doing the movies, and it was very gratifying.
Awesome. Well, I know we're on the clock, so we'll end it this way. If you had to pick one book that you think is your most underrated, is there one that you're particularly proud of that you think didn't get the acclaim you thought it should have?
Well, I have to love all of them to finish them. So I get attached to all of them, and I really can't pick a favorite. I think they've all had a good run in the marketplace, and nothing has been neglected. Calico Joe is probably my favorite sports book until now. I love Sooley. I love the character, but baseball's my favorite sport. I always wanted to do a baseball novel, and when I came up with a story for Calico Joe, I thought this is really going to work, and that one kind of sticks out as one that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us, and I know we got to run, but John Grisham, everyone, check out his new basketball novel, Sooley. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Jason. I hope it's not the last.
Yeah, keep them going. Basketball, football, baseball. Maybe hockey next. Who knows?
That'll take some work. I don't know that sport. That'll take a lot of work for that one. I do not foresee a hockey novel anytime in my career.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason. See you. Take care.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.